Hey there, thanks for clicking on this video. You can call me Kay, and this is Opinions Not Facts. Today, we're going to talk about the difference, in my opinion, between canceling someone versus someone getting consequences for their actions. And before we begin, I do want to apologize. The video quality is not great. We had a little bit of a natural disaster, and I've just been recovering from it. It was nothing as bad as what's happening in Texas. My heart goes out to those people. I'm praying for them constantly. What happened here was much smaller, but it definitely changed the trajectory of my summer, and I've had to really focus on have tos over want tos. And unfortunately, this channel is a want to. It's kind of a luxury when I have free time, and I just haven't had that free time lately. So I apologize. The video may not be beautiful, but I'm trying my best. Now, today I want to talk about a video or use this video to talk about cancel culture versus consequences, specifically framed around Dr. Christina Probst. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing her last name. Hey there, this is Editing K. Quickly wanted to say this is not an invitation or an encouragement to go and harass this woman. Please do not do so, especially not in my name, but don't do it at all for anyone's name, please. Now, if you've been living under a rock, I will explain it to you. We have had huge, massive floods going through Texas, specifically along the Guadalupe River is the one I'm most familiar with. These floods have a pretty high death toll. I believe we're in the hundreds now of recovered bodies. And this includes a boys and girls summer camp, specifically the girls' summer camp. Several cabins were washed away, and many of the updates we're getting surround trying to recover the bodies of these young girls. So we're talking, I believe, ages like 8 to 12. And it's heartbreaking. It's absolutely devastating, not just for the little girls, but all of the animals, the people, the homes, everything. It's just been absolutely devastating. And obviously, a normal human reaction is to grieve over this, but someone had a very unnatural reaction, a very extremist, brainwashed reaction, I would argue, a very puritanical reaction, I might even say, because uh, obviously, if you are fully ideologically captured into a certain uh, group of ideals, you would want the destruction and demise of everyone who disagrees with you because they're dirty, filthy people and they deserve what happens to them, right? Well, that apparently is what this pediatrician, Dr. Christina, thought, because she went on Facebook and basically declared that these people got what they voted for. Now, I'm reading off of The Guardian because it was the first thing that I clicked on where I did not have this massive paywall. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. But Dr. Christina had said at the time in a Facebook post, and I'll see if I can find it and put it on the screen for you guys, may all visitors, children, non-MAGA voters, and pets be safe and dry. And she also said, Care County MAGA voted to gut FEMA. They deny climate change. May they get what they voted for. Now, I don't think I should have to explain to you guys how vastly inappropriate that is. I think any civil human being understands that that is the sort of thing you think in your head, and then you go, wow, what an awful thing to think. I actually hope that everyone is okay. And then you move on with your life. I want to be clear, I'm not blaming people for having a gut reaction of disliking people and even thinking aggressive thoughts towards someone you don't like. I think we all do that, but the difference between empathetic humans and people who are indoctrinated into these political camps is that we then go, but that's not the world I want to live in. I am choosing to have empathy for these people, even if I don't agree with them. And then we get rid of the thoughts of aggression and frustration and violence. And we go, wow, this is not a time for politics. And we move that thought aside and we choose to be good people. Clearly, this pediatrician did not make that choice. She went with her initial gut reaction, which is that people on the right deserved this to happen to them, and she is okay with it happening. In fact, a lot of people have read a fairly gleeful tone into what she said. So obviously, this had a huge reaction. People were not happy, they were horrified, and she lost her job. And I think it's entirely appropriate for her to lose her job because I think it speaks a lot that she wishes harm upon people who she does not politically agree with, because she's working with vulnerable children. These were vulnerable children who were mainly affected, who we were hearing about in the news, who she was responding to. And so, even though she says, may children be safe, it's clear that she's at least not caring about supposed MAGA children. So imagine if she is your pediatrician and she hears that you as a parent voted Republican, what she might feel comfortable saying and doing to your child. That is a huge risk. She has breached, appropriate care sort of boundaries simply by expressing a willingness to bring harm and for harm to be put upon people she disagrees with. That, as a position of power in a doctor's office, makes her an unsafe person. She's clearly too kind of ideologically captured to appropriately treat patients. At least in my opinion. You might argue differently. But clearly, enough people thought this way that she was removed from her position. And she did make an apology. You can think what you want about it. I'm going to be honest, I'm not that impressed. She said, at least in, let's see here. She said, I speak to you as a mother, a neighbor, a pediatrician, and a human being who is deeply sorry. She says that what she said on social media does not reflect the value standards or mission of where she works, and she takes full responsibility for a social media comment she made before she knew how many precious lives were lost in the terrible tragedy in Texas. She goes on to say more, but that specific thing right there is what makes me kind of scoff at her apology, because I think the perfectly normal, sane human being doesn't need to know people died to realize what an awful thing it is to say that you hope that people who voted against you receive harm. I don't think that you need loss of life to realize how disgusting that is to say. In fact, the majority of the population very easily, on both the left and right, realize that they shouldn't say it, and they get rid of that idea and they correct themselves before it goes on Facebook. So, with that being said, those are my opinions. So, up front, there's my bias, but here's why I think what's happening to her is appropriate and why it is not cancel culture. So, to my understanding, when I have observed cancel culture, it is characterized by two important details for me. Number one is the time frame, and number two is the breadth and depth of response, what the consequences are. What I see with cancel culture is that, generally speaking, there is a large time frame between when the act happened and when the consequences come. And then with that, the consequences for what they did in cancel culture are often quite large. It is a very massive response. It's not just, hey, you lose your job, hey, you lose the position of power you had. It's usually we contact your family and harass them. We contact any future employers. If you are recognized out in public, you can be harassed and things like that. So to me, cancel culture has a wide variety of kind of oversteppings that create sort of the toxicity that people are criticizing with cancel culture. Now, on the other hand, discipline or consequences are a kind of a measured reaction or a natural reaction to what someone has done in the present. So in this case, today, as we are sitting here, well, not today, but literally within like the last month, when a tragedy is happening, this woman has gotten on and said something truly heinous. And immediately people have responded by saying, that's awful. You should be ashamed of yourself. Her job has dismissed her because, clearly her ideologies allow her to wish harm on people. And that can't happen in a doctoral setting. She can't be an unbiased caregiver. And probably what's happened is her community no longer welcomes her because this is what she thinks here and now. Here and now, she thinks if you disagree with her, that you deserve horrible things to happen to you, that you've earned them. And she was not afraid to say it out loud in public with her name attached to it. This is happening right now. That is a consequence. Now, on the other hand, where this would have been cancel culture is if this happened 10 years ago. And the reason that I think that would not be good and why I don't really like cancel culture is because when you're looking at something from 10, even 5 years ago, people grow and change in that time. So who I was 10 years ago is vastly different from who I am now. And the things I was willing to do and say 10 years ago have changed quite a bit compared to today. For better and for worse. Both sides, both ways. But when we use stuff from years and years ago and we put modern sensibilities on it, not only does it not necessarily help anything, but oftentimes what we are doing is absolving ourselves as a society from the responsibility we had to be aware and to create consequences at the point that that was happening. What I see with cancel culture is not necessarily someone getting like finally getting their comeuppance for who they were back when, back then. But a lot of times, what I see is society trying to find a way to absolve themselves from their own personal guilt. It feels like when I see cancel culture, back then when that person did that horrible thing, as a society, we didn't call it out then. We didn't think it was wrong then. And we're so embarrassed and ashamed of that. And rather than holding ourselves accountable and saying, yeah, we had to grow and learn that that was not okay, we find a scapegoat and we put it all on them like it's their fault. Like they're the only person who did not grow and change. We've grown and changed. We're better, but not them because they did it 10 years ago and they put it on the internet where it lasts for forever. We just did it behind the scenes with our buddies. So in my mind, cancel culture is it's less about, things catching up with people, and it's become more about a way for society to escape being held responsible for who they were back then and basically like trying to fluff themselves up and feel good about themselves like they can change and do better and learn, but other people can't. It's basically finding a scapegoat. So it's important that when we see evil and wrong, we call it out when we see it and we don't wait 10 years and then do it then because it's meaningless then. And it says a lot more about us than it does about the person who probably grew up and learned not to say those things anymore. Versus now, if there is an adult woman now on the internet wishing harm upon people she disagrees with, right now, she needs to see the consequences of saying that. She needs to realize that in a healthy society, that is not welcome. And so she needs the consequences now. And now, as a society, we're stepping up and we're saying, absolutely not. This has no place in our world. And that's a good thing. So that's why I don't think this is cancel culture and why I am okay with consequences. I am really not comfortable with a lot of the cancel culture stuff, and there's nuance to it. Every situation has its own nuance, but in general, this is sort of my overview of what I think and why. I'd be curious to know what you think. If you disagree with me, disagree with me nicely. But I'm interested. I'd love to know what you guys have to say. And I hope today you go out and you show some empathy to someone, especially if you don't agree with them. And have a good day. Bye.